Ruman, like we started our operation 26 years before in India, and we have kind of, wait a minute, I think there is something. Yeah. So primarily we started with training, so where we have trained more than 1.3 million of students in the last 26 years. And also we have incubated 100 plus startups. So there are two verticals where we operate. One is with the training. At the same time, we are also into IT services where we build the smart cities. We do the large system integration project. And the latest venture of ours is the startup varsity, where we have incubated 100 plus companies. Moreover, now as the buzzword is AI, and today's event is for that purpose itself, so we do have our AI lab where we have developed 50 plus products. So we do have voice agents. We have one of the interesting product which we have developed where we say, why not a database, why not a LinkedIn for the blue collars? So like, today when we talk about resume, in that case, it's always when a person who knows English can only have the resume. Why not the one of the plumber or one of the carpenter should have their resume? So that is what we call it as blue LinkedIn kind of and many other products we are having apart from that: AI tutor, campus management, and LLM, enterprise LLM. So suppose if you don't want to, my colleague, my partner Srinivas, who would be having expert talk on this Maya AI, and he is also going to give you the demo how exactly using the agentic AI we are going ahead with kind of continuous threat monitoring. So Policy Aura is the regulatory. So there are different countries, and in the different countries we are having the different regulatory. So using the Policy Aura, we are going to go ahead with the regulatory framework, and you can see what exactly is the regulatory of which company. So with that, we would be starting the panel discussion where like Mr. Sanjay Puri will be leading the panel, and we will have a panel discussion first and followed by a demo of Maya AI. So I invite Mr. Sanjay to take over the stage and start with the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, and thank you to Roman. Unfortunately, my voice is not as clear as Manish, so I might use sign language if it's okay with all of you. But I think Manish mentioned that AI is actually penetrating every aspect of our society, whether it's medicine, whether it is gaming, whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing and others. And if that is the case, the trust factor in AI is actually widening. People don't trust AI as much. Sometimes it's less than 50%. So what can we do to build that level of trust? It's not going to be code that is going to increase that trust. It is actually going to be a new set of leaders that are going to help us build that trust. Well, first let me call the leaders that we have for this panel, and then I'll talk about the trust. So let me call my esteemed panelists, Brando, Daniel, Srinivas, over to our, please have a seat. We have ethics and clarity and governance, because these are the people who actually shape our views and our perspective in what we think of AI. So with that, I would like to point to you a video that we have created to just show you a little bit of the launch on this for AI.
Why journalists matter in the age of responsible AI. Journalism plays a critical role in shaping public understanding. As artificial intelligence increasingly influences how information is produced, distributed, and consumed, the responsibility of the media has never been greater. From algorithmic amplification to automated content creation, AI is transforming newsroom practices. But without ethical oversight, these systems risk reinforcing bias, reducing transparency, and weakening editorial accountability.
ARI, the Ethics and Responsible AI Fellowship,
Is designed for journalists and media professionals who want to critically examine the role of AI in society. The fellowship provides structured learning on AI ethics, governance, and responsible reporting. If you report on technology, policy, or society, and believe that AI must be examined through an ethical lens, the Ethics and Responsible AI Fellowship invites you to apply.
meet the team on Booth Hall, 4 Booth, 4F24, powered by Knowledge Networks.
So if you know any journalists, this is a free fellowship program taught by world leaders, because today you get your news from newspapers and magazines, and you want to make sure that this is done right. So let's have this information over to you, and we'll start with the panel. Okay. See. Now we start with the panel. If they can hear me. Brando, we'll start with you. We met about a month ago at Davos, and one of the things I told you, Brando, was that there is a lot of misconception about the EU AI Act, and we need to change that. This is your moment to kind of tell the audience about some misconceptions that are there. What really is the EU AI Act?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity and congratulations to Knowledge Networks and all the partners involved for this initiative. It's very important that we have opportunities and we use all occasions, including the India AI Impact Summit, to discuss these very important topics. I already apologize that I will have to leave not very far late from now, because I have to speak at the working groups that are being finalized before the summit. As many of you know, I am a member of European Parliament. I was the rapporteur of the AI Act, so I was one of the chief negotiators of this legislation that, as it was said in a previous panel I was participating in, it has been a landmark proposal for a framework of regulation of AI. Even if you can choose to not adhere to all the ideas we have put in that legislation, it's anyway today a reference point for the global debate, because we dealt with a few issues that are relevant wherever we are and wherever we deploy AI. One is which AI use cases are not desirable at all. The AI Act has chosen to identify a few areas where we do not want AI usage. I give you an example. We forbid manipulative subliminal techniques powered by AI. We do not want manipulation of people in our democratic spaces. Another choice we made is to forbid the emotion recognition in spaces of work and of study. We do not want that form of intrusiveness in the context of workers and students. But then, second aspect of the AI Act, we have regulated sensitive use cases. So when you deal with workplace, with medical use, with public administration, democratic processes, we want to have clear standards on quality and appropriateness of data used to train AI, cybersecurity levels, human control. And then we want transparency. We want, and we enact this with the law, that AI-generated content must be recognizable. We want to avoid the proliferation of deep fakes that will create a situation where we don't distinguish reality from false. So these are just a few examples of what we have been dealing with. And it's true, there are misconceptions about the law because sometimes it's interpreted as a limit for the European innovation. I don't believe that because Europe has pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, like India, on how to develop AI systems. And in fact, Europe lacks a integrated financial market to support our startups. This is a big problem. Also, there are issues with our data legislation. We should be able to ensure that there is more access to data. This is very important. But the AI Act doesn't deal with this. It deals with putting a safety framework, risk-based, that tries to build trust. So to be clear and conclude, we want more adoption of AI in Europe. And I know this is also the debate in India. AI diffusion, AI uptake. This is the debate in Europe too. We have the AI Act, but we have also a so-called strategy called Apply AI. We want more AI in various fields. Before coming here, I was meeting with startups from India that deal with AI and agriculture. This is an example. But also AI and healthcare, AI and automotive. But we want to do that with trust, because we are democracies, and in democracy you need to have people that trust the use of these technologies. And so that's why you need to build a trustworthy environment, and the AI Act is exactly for that.
Brando, thanks for clarifying that. You are the architect of the EU AI Act. You are in India. What can India learn from the EU AI Act?
Okay, sorry, it's my fault. It fell and that's it. So I think that EU and India can have a strong partnership on AI. Why? Because we both concentrate on use cases of AI, on deployment of AI. This is a typical angle that we are both experiencing. I had the chance to discuss, not only in this occasion, but also before, with both the government and the entrepreneurs here in India. And the idea of AI deployment, rather than a mere technological competition, an arms race on AI. This is the other narrative and the other debate we hear about. We have probably together a different approach, which is to build a more cooperative and experience-based development of AI. We concentrate on intake and on development. I think this is an issue that I'm sure will emerge further in this summit. How can the so-called middle powers build a network of cooperation for trustworthy deployment of AI that will boost productivity, will increase opportunity, and will build more autonomy from the risk of pressure coming from other actors. This will be a challenge, but I think it's a space of strong cooperation for Europe and India.
Brando, I'm going to ask you another one because you have to leave. There's always this dichotomy of innovation versus regulation. Yeah. What do you think? Innovation versus regulation?
Well, I think this is always the debate, but we should avoid framing it in the wrong way. Sometimes it's framed in the wrong way. Because obviously, when we regulated AI, we took into account the risk of regulating too much an innovation that needed time to be developed. So what we have done is to foresee with the AI Act the frontier area of AI development, so the most powerful models, the generative AI, to be regulated with a co-legislative process. We involve the developers, we involve the civil society and the governments and the academia. And so we developed a safety framework for the most powerful models to, for example, to avoid the creation of pedopornographic material, the incitation to suicide of people, to contrast the propaganda for terrorism or other issues that you can imagine that we want to prevent when we develop AI. It's not against free speech. It's about having rules around how we use these systems. So we have developed a co-legislative process in this area, and we have chosen to develop standards to quantify quality of data, level of cybersecurity, all issues that are needed to deploy safely AI systems. And I want to conclude the point by saying that we always have to take into account that we need to not over-regulate. But let's also avoid the opposite risk of not regulating and then create a situation where there are irreversible consequences. I give you one example to conclude. Is the social media, which are more and more media and less social. And they intertwine very strongly today with AI, especially with generative AI. Well, we didn't regulate very much social media in the last decades. Now we are talking a lot about that everywhere, about children protection, about fighting misinformation, but we are doing it quite late. My opinion is that we already lost a generation to this. There is already a generation of young people that are brought up with the impact on their minds, on their ways of seeing society, on interacting with technology, that is of social media without any rule. So now we are talking about it, but we already lost a generation in my view. So let's always take into account that there might be irreversible consequences by choosing to wait and not put any boundaries. So it's a difficult topic, but let's always think of all the elements on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Introduction. What does trustworthy AI mean to you?
Great. Thanks a lot, Sanjay, and thanks a lot for the invitation. And Brando told you now very, very nicely the theory of the EU AI Act. I will tell you a little bit later the practical experience with that. So my name is Dr. Daniel Dobosch. I'm a particle physicist. Most of my career I spent at CERN, working on the Higgs boson discovery. So I'm a highly cited scientist on AI, I think more than 250,000 citations. And I work now on how can we deliver AI in a trustful way. And you mentioned the EU AI Act and standardization. So I'm the head of a Swiss AI standardization where exactly we try to see how we can get the AI regulation, which is one part of the governance, also into practical standards. And I think this collaboration works very, very well. So everybody talks about that multilateralism is dead. At least in AI standardization, so I have a feeling that still works. On the other side, I'm also co-chairing the AI for Good Impact Initiative. And this is where we try to see how can we build solutions that are not only delivering AI for good for one country or one region, but how to scale that globally. Coming to the EU AI Act and basically how to build trust. You mentioned the theory, and now we read in media a lot that basically, Europe is over-regulating. There's this saying of innovation happens in the US, it's copied and then maybe in China, and Europe just regulates. When you have a researcher like me, and you hear something like that, what do? You say, wait a second, let me try. This is exactly what we did in Switzerland. So we asked ourselves, so can you do AI innovation in the heart of Europe? And we gathered together two great universities, ETH Zurich, EPFL Lausanne, two of the leading universities. And we made a strategic industry partnership with Swisscom, a telecommunication organization. And we created Apertus, a Swiss large language model, fully open source. Not only open weights, open data, open recipes, open filtering. So we understand open source like open source in science, reproducible. And it was published in September last year, and we are about to work on the next version. And so we had to go through the question, we're in Switzerland, we are not obliged to follow the EU AI Act by law, but because we wanted to make it also easy to be used in the European Union and globally, we said, okay, let's take that challenge. It was not so difficult as that. So all this kind of talking about that you cannot do innovation in Europe because of the EU AI Act, sorry, from practical experience, I cannot support that. So to be very honest, these were three big organizations, two major universities, a big telco. And yes, we had to spend some time to read it, and it's a lot to read, and we had to talk to some lawyers. But at the end, if I paraphrase it a little bit, most of it is common sense. So if you go in the supermarket and you're not allowed to steal in a supermarket some food, you read in the EU AI Act that you're not allowed to steal for your AI. If you bring a product into the supermarket and you want to sell something, and you have to declare what is in your tea, for example. If you put in more than just tea and water, if you have to declare it, then I think it's also somehow common sense that in your AI you have to declare what you put in there. So yes, it's a lot of reading and it's a lot of common sense that it's there. And I totally agree that a small startup with a few people cannot do the same thing like two big universities and a telco. But this is why exactly there's working on making it simpler so that also startups can do it. But let's be honest, also startups at the moment don't build large language models like two big universities can, with a huge computing center like the CSCS supercomputer, the seventh biggest supercomputer in the world. So I really think that basically at the moment we are in a good way of showing that innovation can happen with strong governance, and that yet it makes sense to make it easier, but it's also not such a stopping to create this. And open source, coming back to your question, makes it really trustable because you can really examine what happens. Researchers can have a look why the model has biases or not. So really being transparent, I think, is the key to have a trustable AI system.
Brando, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, yes. Yes, and I'm sorry that I will have to go after this, but I think you're totally right. And in fact, let's be honest, we have been the pioneers on this, so we didn't get everything right. I am now working on the so-called digital omnibus of the European Union that also tries to adjust some aspects of the AI Act, but really just marginal things, to be frank, and a few important issues. One of them is strengthening the implementation and enforcement capability of the EU AI Office, because you can have a nice law, but then if it's not applicable, because if someone violates it, you cannot make it be sanctioned and respected, then it's useless. So strengthen that. And the other aspect is what you were saying, simplifying the procedures for the smaller businesses. So we are now building more graduation on that. And so this is what we are doing now, because yes, obviously you always need to think and maybe readjust a bit, but the core of all what we have done, we should not say like, yeah, we cannot innovate in Europe because we want to regulate. Instead, we need to build more common capacity. To be frank, Europe should do more together to develop more capabilities to develop AI and more integrated financial markets, more computing capacity together. And I think we need to build alliances with other middle powers, with the Global South, with India, I'm sure, and I'm sorry, I have to exactly go to speak about that at the main summit now, at the working groups that are being done with the governments, exactly about this, how we build more cooperation so that we can actually develop a model that works for good and not for the interest only of a few countries or even a few people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brando. Daniel, you have built a great ecosystem.
It's, I think, the most important skill that you can learn today.
Questions from the audience? Any? Oh, please. Mike.
This is regarding auditing agentic AI interactions on a blockchain system. Do you think blockchain would be used in the future to audit AI? Anyone?
I can start maybe. I can try a little bit. Yes. So, especially when we talk about agentic AI, when we talk about that we give agency to some AI decision mechanisms and let them decide for us, I think having some kind of ledger system that is trustable, and for the moment blockchain is the trusted systems that we have, is extremely important. Now comes a more difficult question: what to put on the blockchain? Is it just the pure decision? Is it just a yes and no that I should put there? Do I have to put basically everything so I can fully reproduce the AI decision? So do I have to give all the context and all what the AI knew at that moment to really being able to fully reproduce? Maybe that is technically very, very difficult and might create too much data. On the other side, look, how do we trust humans? We trust them to a level. On the other side, we also then are ready to re-question if a human, if a colleague, if a friend took a decision. So should we go this approach that we have some limited accounting of what was done? So I think this is a very good question. Blockchain will be most probably the technology, but the more difficult question is really what to put on the blockchain. And I think this we will need to experience. And this is where maybe at the beginning we are very overcautious. And Brandon tells us a little bit that basically maybe, yes, when doing regulation at the beginning, you want to be very careful and over careful. And this is fine because you can change it later. There's the famous red flag law that you might have heard. This is the Automotive Act of 1856 in London, where there was the first electric cars going, the motorized carriages, and basically you needed 4 people to drive this motorized vehicle because people were just used to horses. So you had a person who had to walk in front of it and carry a red flag. Today we're laughing about it, that imagine you would have a red flag person going in front of each car. But it was good because the society had the chance to learn how to adapt to it. And so most probably a lot of the regulation that we have today, we will laugh about it in 10 years, 20 years, or maybe even 5 years, and that's fine. Because if a society learned how to deal with the difficulties, then the regulation did its purpose and we can, remove it and we can laugh about it. And this is good if we can laugh about regulation and laws.
Just a quick addition to it. If I wear my practitioner lens to it, the answer is yes, but is it when? So I think that's the question you were asking, right? So is it now or is it 10 years from now, right? So I think the answer would be is that today we are still in the crawl phase of agentic maturity in production environments. So there's basic steps like observability and assurance and controls and the continuous posture management. All of these stuffs are still concepts it's still in theoretical phase. So I think it'll take a couple of years for a lot of that to get mature. But having said that, there are still military grade and mission critical applications that need to be tamper resistant from grounds up, from bare metal all the way to the up. So those will still be the what I call as the esoteric use cases that'll be the first adopters. But to percolate it down to the late majority and then to the monoculture deployments, which is going to take a long time.
Thanks.
Am I audible now? Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Agarwal. By profession, I am a scientist, working for last 50 years or so in the area of natural language processing. And also, is it okay now? So, experience of working in natural language processing for last 50 years or so. And I'm very much interested in using, and I have used AI for NLP purpose and things like that. But this topic is a very general topic which you are discussing today about ethical issues and things like that, and making it viable for applications in different areas. Well, the point which I am going to ask is, you are talking about optimization. And our optimization and making the model which you can utilize for that particular application or purpose. Now, I understand these are all data-driven things. The data that you have got today available for that particular application, how reliable it is, and it is a changing phenomenon. Today, whatever database we have got for making that model and optimizing that model is changing tomorrow. So, in order to make applications of that particular model, because we have faced this problem, today if we apply one model, it may not be very much applicable because people say that your data is not sufficient. And you have to change the data, you have to augment it further with the database and things like that. And then tomorrow it will again change. So I just wanted to get your general opinion about